If money comes in and then disappears like there's an invisible leak, that's not just bad luck. It's usually a small habit you repeat without even noticing. A rabbi with decades of study once told me something I never forgot. Your wallet is a message. It always shows where your money is really going. And he taught me to put this in my wallet every single day. It's not an expensive charm, nothing weird or mystical, but there are 2 rules. And rule number 2 is where almost everyone gets it wrong. If you do it the wrong way, you actually reinforce scarcity, and then you say, "See, it doesn't work." In the next 30 seconds, I'm going to show you how not to mess this up. And today is the best day to start because your mind needs a marker. When you start today, your focus shifts today. Today I'll show you what this is, why it changes your relationship with money from the inside out, and how to do it in less than 1 minute. In a grounded, respectful, practical way. When I showed him my wallet, he saw old receipts, random papers, things from the past. And he said, "You're carrying the past, and the past charges interest." In that moment, I finally understood why I always felt tight, like I could never breathe financially. And at the end, I'll give you the exercise he only shares with close students, a way to strengthen this practice without guilt, without pressure, and without anxiety. Before I show you the 2 rules, type this in the comments. I open the flow. That's it. Now let's go to rule number 1. Now I want you to do something with me, really quick. You don't need to believe in anything yet. Just do it, because this already starts shifting your decision field today. Grab your wallet or your purse and open it right now, just for 20 seconds. Look honestly, what's in there that has nothing to do with your present life? Old receipts, crumpled papers, expired cards, notes from months ago, things you keep out of fear, habit, or pure exhaustion. I get it, we keep them thinking, what if I need this? But without realizing it, this turns into a small altar to the past. And the past, it charges, it takes up space, it weighs you down. So do this. No drama, no perfectionism. Choose 3 things to remove right now, just 3. You don't need to clean everything, just 3. Maybe an old receipt, a paper that gives you a bad feeling, a note that no longer matters. Take them out and place them next to you, that's it. Now take a breath and notice what you felt. Because for many women, the problem isn't a lack of strength, it's too much emotional weight, carrying everything, inside and outside. And when you're always carrying, your mind goes into defense mode, tightening, bracing, holding, and suddenly everything feels harder. I'm not saying a piece of paper in your wallet creates miracles. I'm saying your body learns through symbols. And your financial life is built from small decisions repeated every day, what you hold on to, what you release, and what you make space to receive. Now here's the important part. If you do this wallet practice with anxiety, like it's a trade or a demand, you kill the effect. But if you do it with calm and intention, you start noticing changes surprisingly fast. More clarity, less impulsive spending, a stronger sense of direction. And that's why I asked you to do this mini test first. Because this thing you're about to put in your wallet doesn't work in chaos. It works in alignment. It works when you become someone who makes space. In a moment, I'll show you exactly what it is, and most importantly, the 2 rules. But you need to understand this first. Most people do the first one and fail the second. That's why they say, nothing changed. If this has made sense so far, stay with me a little longer. I'll guide you step by step, in the simplest way possible. I remember that day with a strange clarity, like my body recorded it. I wasn't broken. I was tired. Tired of doing everything right, of pushing, organizing, trying to stay responsible, and still feeling like money never turned into rest. It was like I was always missing one last step, and that messes with you quietly. On the outside you keep functioning, but inside you become tense, alert, braced, always waiting for the next squeeze. I was referred to this rabbi by someone very discreet. Someone who doesn't speak loudly about anything but carries this calm in their eyes, you know? And when people like that recommend someone, I pay attention. The place was simple, no luxury, no display, but it had presence, it had silence, and most of all, it had a kind of order that brings peace. I sat down and started talking. the way people do when they finally feel like someone is truly listening. I talked about work, bills, worries, about always feeling like I was chasing and never really arriving. I talked about the weight of waking up already thinking about money. And while I spoke, he didn't interrupt me. He just watched with a kind of attention that went past my words and straight to the intention behind them. When I finished, he stayed silent for a few seconds, and instead of making me uncomfortable, that silence made me feel seen. Then he said, in a calm, steady voice, "You don't lack effort. You live in constant contraction." At first I thought, what does that even mean? Because we're taught that when money feels tight, the solution is to tighten ourselves even more. Work harder, control more, hold everything together. And he continued, when you live holding everything in, you start living in fear, and fear begins to organize your life. It becomes your advisor. It makes decisions for you. I felt that in my body, because that's exactly how it works. A lot of the time we don't even realize we're afraid. We call it being responsible, or being cautious, or just being realistic. But underneath, it's fear of not having enough, fear of failing, fear of needing help, fear of being judged. Then he said something I've never forgotten. Money is a tool, but for many people it becomes a measure of personal worth. And when that happens, the soul goes to war. I looked down. Because it hurts to admit this. There are so many strong women who inside carry guilt just for wanting stability, guilt for wanting a little breathing room, guilt for wanting rest. He waited a moment. Then he asked something simple. "May I see your wallet?" I thought it was strange, but I handed it to him. And then something unexpected happened. He didn't talk about numbers, investments, or spreadsheets. He simply opened it, looked quietly, and started removing a few things with the tips of his fingers. Old receipts, folded papers, a card that was no longer valid, a note that no longer meant anything. And he said, "This is the past. This is a memory of pressure. This is proof of worry." I tried to explain, "Oh, I keep that because..." And he interrupted me gently. "I know, but let me tell you what happens. You think you're keeping paper, but your body reads it as, 'I need to protect myself.'" He closed the wallet slowly, looked me in the eyes and said, "The past doesn't pay your bills, and the past charges interest." In that moment, something clicked, because money in daily life isn't just math. It's repeated emotion. It's an internal state. It's how you relate to safety. And he continued, "I'm not talking about superstition. I'm talking about symbols. Symbols train your heart, and your heart trains your choices." I asked, "So what do I do?" And he answered, "You start today, simple, small, but intentional." I remember laughing a little, because simple almost feels offensive when you're exhausted. When you're tired, you think, it can't be simple. And that's where the mind gets tricked. It believes that change has to hurt. He opened a drawer and spent a few seconds looking for something. I couldn't see it yet. I only heard the soft sound of things being moved. And before showing it to me, he said, "I'm going to give you a practice you'll carry in your wallet. But you need to understand 2 rules. The first is easy. The second changes everything. And it's exactly the second one where people sabotage themselves." When he said sabotage, I felt a tightness in my chest. Because the truth is, we don't sabotage ourselves on purpose. We do it because we're afraid. And fear often disguises itself as common sense. I leaned forward, not wanting to miss a word. And he said, "Before I give you this, I need you to answer honestly. Do you want more money, or do you want peace?" That question sounds simple, but it goes deep. Because for many women, the problem isn't just having more. It's having more without losing themselves. Having more without living in constant tension. Having more without carrying everything alone. I took a breath and answered, "I want peace." He nodded and said, "Then you'll do this the right way, because done the right way, money doesn't control you. You become its steward." Then he finally placed his hand on the table, the way someone does when they're about to hand you something that deserves respect. And before I could even see it, he said, "It's not expensive, it's not complicated, and it's not magic. It's discipline with intention. And if you do it, you'll feel the change here first, and then out there. And that's exactly why I need you with me right now. Because in the next part I'm going to explain clearly what this is and why rule number 2 is the reason so many people say it didn't work. Before I show you what this is, I need to be very clear, in the most honest way possible. This does not replace work. It does not replace organization. It does not replace responsibility. It's not a shortcut. And I'm not going to sell you the idea that there's a people, a religion or a practice that guarantees wealth like some kind of magic formula. That's not what this is. What does exist, and this is public, educational, and respectful, are values and symbols that help train the mind and the heart to live with more order, more courage, and more generosity. And when you change on the inside, you change how you act on the outside. And then opportunities start showing up differently because you start seeing differently and choosing differently. So think of it this way. The object itself doesn't have power. What has power is what it represents every single day in the moment you touch it and decide who you're going to be. And that's why this practice works especially well for women who carry a lot on their shoulders. Because it's not just about money. It's about taking the soul out of defense mode and placing it into direction mode. Now I'm going to show you this and explain the 2 rules. The first one sounds simple. The second is the one that separates people who try it for a day and forget from those who actually change the flow. So let's begin. Take a breath, because this is simple, and simple is what changes daily life. Rule number 1. You must set this aside with intention. It's not about grabbing anything and tossing it into your pocket. It's about setting it aside as if you were saying, I don't live just trying to survive. I live with direction. So what is this? It's a small amount of money. It can be a coin. It can be a low-value bill. But with a very specific purpose. It's not for spending on yourself. It's for carrying in your pocket a daily reminder that you can still be a source, even on hard days. And I already know what might be crossing your mind right now, but I barely have enough for myself. I understand. And that's exactly why this works so powerfully for people who live feeling squeezed. Because scarcity has one main lie. It convinces you that you're always at the end. And when you believe you're always at the end, you close yourself off. And when you close yourself off, you see less. You risk less. You create less. You ask for less help. And life slowly gets smaller. The first rule gently breaks that lie. So do this. Choose a coin or a small bill, truly small. The amount is not the point. The intention is. When you place it in your pocket or wallet, you don't need to say anything poetic or fancy. You just need to think a short, firm, honest sentence, in your own words. Something like, this is set aside to do good, or I am a channel, or I make space for flow. That's it. And here's a detail that changes everything for women in particular. When you set this aside, you stop living in guilt mode and start living in purpose mode. Because for many women, money is a place of tension. Either you hold on and feel stuck, or you spend and feel guilty. This rule creates a third path: you lead. And now the important part, you're not going to give it away impulsively. You're going to carry it with respect and awareness. Because your pocket becomes a quiet reminder all day long, I am not a hostage, I choose. That's it, that's the first rule. But now comes the second rule, and I need you to understand this. This is where almost everyone messes it up. Because rule number 2 isn't pretty. It's simple, practical, and it requires consistency. And it's the one that keeps the flow alive. Now comes the second rule, and I'm going to be direct, because this is the heart of the practice. Rule number 2, you never end the day with your pocket empty of that set-aside money. In other words, if you gave it, you replace it. If you took it out of your pocket, you put it back before going to sleep, or at the latest, the next morning. Always. And I know it sounds small. I know it sounds like just a detail. But this is exactly the detail that turns a nice intention into a real flow. Because the mind learns through repetition. And every time you replace it, you send a powerful message to your brain and to your body. I give and I still have. I do good, and I don't empty myself. I participate in the flow, without living in fear. Now pay attention, because this is where the 3 mistakes happen. The ones that make people say, I tried it and nothing changed. Mistake number 1, turning it into a trade. The person puts it in their pocket, thinking, I'm doing this so I can get more money. And then they become anxious, watching for results. That contracts everything, that closes things down. This practice works best when your intention is clean. I want to be someone who opens paths. And then naturally you start acting differently. You notice opportunities, you make the call you were avoiding. You position yourself better. You ask for help without shame. You make decisions with more clarity. Mistake number 2, judging who receives. Do they deserve it? Will they use it the right way? I understand the concern, but here the rule is simple. You're not managing someone else's life. You're training your own heart. You give with respect and dignity, and you move on. Because the main benefit happens in you, you leave close and hold mode and enter open and lead mode. Mistake number 3, giving and not replacing. This is the silent one. The person gives, feels good about it, and then goes 2 or 3 days without putting it back. And the message the body learns is, when I give, I end up with less. And then fear comes back, tension comes back, scarcity comes back. That's why rule number 2 exists. It protects you. It says I can be generous without abandoning myself. And for women, this runs deep, because so often life has been one of 2 extremes. Either you take care of everyone else and forget yourself, or you try to hold on and feel guilty. Here, it's different. Here you care, and you sustain yourself at the same time. Now I'm going to ask you for something quick, because I want to walk through this with you as a real commitment. If you're going to practice this for 7 days, type this in the comments right now. 7 days. I'll know you're with me, and you'll be making a public commitment to yourself. And now, before I tell you what started changing for me, I want you to imagine something for a moment. What would your life feel like if, on the inside, you stopped living in tight mode and started living in direction mode? That's what we're talking about now. In the first few days, I didn't feel fireworks, and I want you to hear this clearly, because this is where many people quit. Change starts small, and it starts inside. The first sign was simple. I started walking down the street differently, more aware, more present, not hunting for a miracle, but actually noticing people, situations, opportunities. I'll give you 3 real, everyday examples. The first one happened on a regular morning. I was taking care of things and remembered someone who had owed me money for months. I was afraid to ask and seem uncomfortable or pushy. But that day, I took a breath and thought, I'm not going to shrink. I sent a simple, respectful, direct message, and a few minutes later the reply came. The person apologized and paid. It might sound like coincidence, but the point isn't coincidence. The point is that I did what I had been postponing out of fear. The second example was small, but it stayed with me. I was on my way out and saw someone selling something with that tired look. You know the one. It wasn't pity, it was humanity. I used the money I had set aside in my pocket, just like I had promised myself. And when I gave it, I didn't feel loss. I felt alignment. And for someone who lives anxious around money, that's rare. It's like the body says, I can do good and still be safe. And the third example happened in a simple, unexpected way. During a casual conversation, someone mentioned a work opportunity I didn't even know existed. And instead of thinking, that's not for me, I simply asked, how does it work? I allowed myself, I showed up, and that openness led to a connection that, weeks later, became a door I actually needed. Do you see the difference? It's not that the universe throws money at you, it's that you stop closing yourself off, and when you stop closing yourself off, you start seeing. And that's when he shared a metaphor that stayed with me, because it's perfect. He said some people live like a closed lake. The lake holds us, and the water stops moving. And stagnant water over time gets heavy, it spoils, it creates fear of loss. But others live like a river receives and releases. It doesn't cling in panic, it flows, and because it flows, it stays alive. When you practice this with both rules, you train your heart to become a river, not a reckless river, a conscious one. You give, you replace, you acknowledge, and you keep going. And there's something especially important here for you. as a woman who carries the home, the family, the bills, and often the emotional weight of everyone around you. The biggest effect of this practice isn't just more money coming in, it's less fear. Because when fear softens, you communicate better, you negotiate better, you plan better, you sleep better, and when you sleep better, you decide better. And better decisions change your financial life far more than any superstition ever could. Now I need to prepare you for what comes next, because this is where many women feel relief, sometimes even tears, when they finally understand this. You're not bad with money. You're tired, you're contracted. You've been living in defense mode for too long. And in the next part, I'll talk about exactly that, about invisible weight, about guilt, and about how to do this practice without anxiety and without demanding perfection from yourself. I want to speak to you more directly now, because I know who I'm talking to. Many women listening to me here are not weak, quite the opposite. You're so strong that you've learned how to endure. You hold the household together. You manage the routine. You carry the worries, and still try to smile so no one else feels burdened. But inside sometimes there's a knot, and that knot has a name: fear of not having enough. That fear doesn't show up only when a bill is due. It shows up at the grocery store, when you're calculating every item. It shows up when you want to buy something small and immediately feel guilty. It shows up when you lie down at night and your mind won't shut off. It shows up when you think about the future and feel that tightness in your chest. And do you know what's most cruel about it? After a while you start believing this is normal, that living on alert is normal, that always being on defense is normal. It's not. You can be responsible without being a hostage. And that's why I love this practice, because it looks small on the outside, but it touches something deep on the inside. It teaches you every single day that you don't have to choose between two extremes. You don't have to be the person who closes off, holds everything in, and lives in tension. Nor do you have to be the person who lets go without direction and then regrets it. You can be a third kind of person, the woman who manages, the woman who acts with intention, the woman who is steady without being hard, generous without abandoning herself. And let me tell you something that almost no one says out loud. When you live with fear for many years, you start making small decisions that feel safe, but actually shrink your life. You avoid conversations, you avoid standing your ground, you avoid asking for a raise, you avoid collecting what you're owed, you avoid saying no, you avoid investing in yourself. And slowly, money stops being a symbol of life and becomes a symbol of pain. If you're listening right now and feeling this in your chest, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not alone, and you are not behind. You're tired. And tired people don't need judgment. They need direction and care. And here's a request I make with real respect. If you know a woman, a mother, a sister, a friend, who lives with this quiet fear, who smiles on the outside and tightens on the inside, send this video to her. Not as criticism, as care, as if to say, I thought of you. Because sometimes a sentence, a gesture, a small beginning can change someone's entire day. Now take a breath, because in the next moment I'm going to guide you through a very short, very simple exercise, something you can do today with me in under a minute, and you'll feel the difference in your body. I want you to really do this with me, truly. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be honest. If you can, place your hand on your pocket right now, even if it's empty. Just place your hand there as a symbol, like saying, I'm here, I'm present. Breathe in slowly through your nose. Hold for a second, and release through your mouth. One more time. Now, without rushing, think of one very simple sentence. Today, I step out of tightness. Or, today, I make space. Choose one, just one. If you've already set aside that small coin or bill, take it now. If you haven't yet, that's okay. You can do this later with whatever you have. What matters is that you understand the gesture. Hold the money in your hand for 2 seconds and notice this. In this moment, it's not just money. It's a reminder. It's a small commitment to a calmer version of you. Now imagine this, just briefly. You are like a house with doors. When the house is afraid, it locks everything. When the house is at peace, It organizes itself and lets the air circulate. So for a few seconds, imagine yourself unlocking from the inside. This isn't theater, it's intention. Breathe again. Now think, quietly but firmly, this money is set aside to do good when the right opportunity shows up. You don't need to say it out loud if you don't want to. Just think it with clarity. And now make the gesture. Place it in your pocket slowly, no rush, as if you were making a small declaration. I choose to be someone who lives in flow. Leave your hand there for a second. And here's a detail many people miss. In that second, you're training your body, because the body learns through repetition and meaning. And when you do this daily, something shifts. You stop acting from urgency and start acting from direction. Now I want you to do a second part, very short, that helps especially if you feel anxious around money. Think of one financial concern, just one. It could be a bill, a debt, a tight situation, a fear. Now instead of running that exhausting mental movie, try something different. Ask yourself calmly, what is the next small possible step? Next small step, not fixing your whole life, one step. It could be, I'll look at my statement today. I'll make a call to negotiate. I'll cut one expense that drains me. I'll ask for what I'm owed, respectfully. I'll organize my paperwork. Choose one step, just one. Now as you hold that step in mind, bring your hand back to your pocket and touch the money you set aside. Just touch it. And say to yourself, I won't abandon myself. I'll do what's possible today. This is far more powerful than blaming yourself, because guilt doesn't organize, guilt freezes. Now I'm going to ask you for one last gesture, a very human one. Think of someone you love. It could be a child, a granddaughter, a friend, someone who needs support, light, or strength right now. It doesn't have to be about money. It could be health, peace, work, anything. And quietly say, may this person be supported. Why am I asking this? Because when you take your heart out of fear and place it into care, your emotional frequency changes. And a woman who changes her emotional frequency changes the way she lives. Now, the practical part. If today a safe, respectful opportunity comes up to use the money you've set aside, use it lightly. And remember rule number 2, you replace it later. If nothing shows up today, that's okay. You keep it in your pocket. The important thing is this, you're no longer living on autopilot. And now I want to tell you what will start happening over the next few hours and days if you do this with sincerity. You'll begin to notice signs, small signs, but clear ones. And these signs are how you know your mind has shifted from close down mode to lead mode. That's what we're talking about now. I want to show you how to know you're doing this the right way, because many people wait for some big dramatic event and miss the small signals. And it's in the small signals that life actually starts to change. I'm going to give you 5 very clear signs, and I want you to observe them without anxiety. Observe like someone waking up, not like someone demanding results. Sign number 1. You feel calmer when making decisions. You'll notice this in simple moments. At the grocery store, making a purchase, paying a bill. Before, money came with tightness. Now, you pause and breathe before acting. And breathing before acting is the beginning of prosperity, because it pulls you out of impulse. Sign number 2. You start seeing options where you used to see only problems. It's as if your mind, which used to live on high alert, starts opening doors. You think, I can negotiate. I can ask for a discount. I can reorganize. I can make a call and resolve this. This isn't magic, it's clarity. And clarity changes everything. Sign number 3. You begin respecting yourself financially again. This one is especially strong for women. You start saying no to things that drain you. You stop punishing yourself. You stop spending to soothe anxiety. And at the same time, you stop denying yourself everything out of guilt. You find a middle ground, steadiness with kindness. Sign number 4. Small coincidences start showing up. A discount. Someone reaching out for a conversation. A door you weren't even looking for. You don't need to romanticize this as a miracle. Think of it this way. When you're more present, you notice more, and you respond better. And that increases the chances of good things happening. Sign number 5. The fear of not having enough softens, first on the inside. This is the most important sign. Because when fear decreases, you sleep better. And when you sleep better, you communicate better, plan better, negotiate better. And then money starts responding to a more organized mind. Now I want to pause here and adjust this practice to real life, because I know some people listening right now are under serious financial pressure. If that's you, do it this way. Use the smallest amount possible. The value is not the center. If you can't give every day, that's okay. You can carry it and give 3 times a week, as long as the intention and rule number 2 remain. If you feel uncomfortable giving on the street, you can redirect it to a small box at home and later donate to a cause, a church, an organization, or someone you trust. The important thing is flow, with respect. And one essential thing, don't do this from desperation. Desperation turns into pressure, pressure turns into contraction, and contraction closes the path. Do it with dignity. Do it with presence. And if you've stayed with me until here, I already know something about you. You don't just want more. You want to live with more peace, more order, more emotional safety. So I'm going to ask you for one quick thing, because it helps me keep bringing this kind of content in the right way. Subscribe to the channel, not out of obligation, but because here I share symbolic practices and values with respect, without exaggeration and without empty promises. Always grounded, always with simple steps you can actually use in daily life. And now, we've reached the part I promised at the very beginning. The advanced exercise. It's simple, but it has a strong effect because it deepens your commitment to flow without turning it into a transaction. Let's go there now. Here's the advanced exercise I mentioned, and I want you to understand the spirit of it, so it doesn't turn into anxiety or self-pressure. This is not something you do in desperation. It's something you do when you feel ready to celebrate your decision to open the flow. I call this exercise Flow Day. Here's how it works. Choose one day of the week. It can always be the same day, for example, every Wednesday, or a day that fits naturally into your routine. The important thing is that you choose a day and treat it as a reminder. I don't live just to hold on, I live to lead. On that day, instead of setting aside just 1 coin or small bill, you set aside 7 small amounts. They can be 7 coins or 7 small bills, depending on your reality. And I'll say it again, it doesn't need to be big. It needs to be consistent and light. Now comes the important part. Throughout that day, you'll practice 7 acts of flow. And I call them acts of flow because they don't have to be only about money. Sometimes it's money. Other times it's help, kindness, care, a concrete gesture. For example, helping someone carry bags, contributing to a cause, giving to someone who needs it, buying someone a coffee, doing a favor you know will genuinely ease someone's day. The secret isn't the amount. The secret is the training of the heart. I am alive, I am open, I participate. And there's one short phrase I want you to use that day. May I be a channel. Repeat it silently before the first act. Then live the day normally. No performance, no drama. Now, one rule for this advanced exercise. If you do it and then become anxious, thinking something has to happen now, you close yourself off. So treat it like a celebration, like a choice, not like a trade. And it's incredible how when you do this with a clean intention, the body responds. You feel lighter. You look at people differently. You respect yourself more. And slowly, life begins to respond differently too, because you start acting like someone who has direction. Now I'll leave you with one final step so this can truly become a habit, and with a closing that prepares you for the next video, because there may be a part of your home that's draining more than you realize. So let's recap very simply, so you don't leave here confused. First, you set aside a coin or a small bill with intention. Second, you carry it in your pocket as a daily reminder, and if you use it to do good, you replace it afterward. That's the rule that keeps the flow alive. And remember, this isn't about superstition. It's about symbol, habit, and direction. It's about taking the heart out of defense mode and placing it into lead mode. Now I'm going to ask you for 2 quick things so we can close this with a real commitment. First, if you're starting today, comment below, I start today. I'll be reading and liking the first ones because I want to walk with you in this decision. Second, I'll pin a comment with a simple 7-day routine so you don't lose your way. If you want, come back later and grab it. And so you don't stop here, I'll tell you what the next video is about, because it completes this conversation. In the next one, I'll show you 3 places in the home, especially near the entrance, that may be quietly draining money and peace, and how to adjust them in a simple, symbolic, and respectful way. If this made sense to you, stay with me. You don't have to carry everything alone. See you in the next one.